right, welcome everybody. Welcome back to Biztainment Weekly. I am Scott Janney, your host with the least. And I only say that because I am married and what's mine is hers and hers is hers. So I get nothing. But thank you everybody for tuning in to another awesome podcast here. We have an amazing guest with us, and I'm going to dive all into who Cameron is here in just a minute. But I do want to say thank you to Magazine Jukebox for being our sponsor. Digital Magazine Rack for commercial spaces are the ones who afford this podcast to happen. And because of Magazine Jukebox and its investors, we're able to get this amazing content out. So thank you for that. But before we dive in to Mr. Cameron here, I'm going to really dive deep, man, super deep. I really feel the worst for you. I'm just kidding. It's going to be great. But Cameron Gilmore on the show. Thank you for being on the show. And but we're going to dive in right now to LinkedIn Moment. So for those of you who don't know what our LinkedIn Moment is, that is when I find positive posts on LinkedIn that I like to talk about. And what I'd like to tell everybody is, hey, look, if you post something positive and you're a friend or you're a connection or a connection of a connection or 3 connections down, I don't really care. As long as it's positive, I'm going to talk about it. And if you don't want me talking about it, block me. That's the best way to prevent that. So the first one here is from becoming a new friend here. His name's Andrew Wynn, and he has lot of startup history. He's been part of some big projects, and maybe one day we'll get him on the podcast here. But he actually reposted this a while back from a guy named Tony Faddle. And Tony, I think I'm saying that right, Fadell. And it says iPod, iPhone, Nest, investor, and New York Times bestselling author. Sorry if I butchered the last name. Everybody butchers mine, so I get it. But he posted, you should always be striving to tell a story so good that it stops being yours. So your customer learns it, loves it, internalizes it, owns it, and tells it to everyone they know. Man, that is some good stuff. Good stuff. Thank you for posting that. And thanks, Andrew, for sharing that. Now, this one I'm going to take a second on. I normally don't take very long on these, but I want to take a second on this because I have what I like to call a man crush. And I have this man crush on this guy named Patrick Bet-David. And if you don't know Patrick Bet-David, he is a refugee from Iran. His story is pretty incredible. He joined the U.S. Army when he was 18 and served our country. And now he's worth hundreds of millions of dollars. And I just found out today that he is now a minority owner of the New York Yankees. Pretty incredible stuff. What a cool journey. He's about 4 to 6 years older than me, which drives me nuts. I'm way behind the curve here. But he posted this about a week ago, and I remember reading this, and I wanted to talk about it. But it says, parents, this message is for you. The need for you to be involved today has intensified. A PG-13 movie today would be rated R in the 90s. Today, public schools isn't the same as the ones we went to in the 80s and the 90s. Today's cartoons aren't what we watched in the 80s and 90s. Today's books aren't what they once were. Food today isn't what it once was. Universities today aren't what they once were. They all come with an agenda. It's either they groom your kids or you prepare them for the world. As parents, you have to choose to be more involved, be aware, be clear in your expectations, do research, pray, and lead. And most importantly, to manage expectations with teachers, admin, and those who influence over your kids. You know, that's a little bit of a heated topic, and I know that, and I'm not trying to get into all that, but I will say that as a parent, and Cameron here, I know that he's a parent of many kids. He has way more than I do. And, but you know, this is really important. And I thought that this was more of a positive post for those who are actively parenting their kids. Take some advice from Patrick Bet-David here. But also the reason why I also brought him up is I just finished his book. It's called Your Next 5 Moves, and it's about business strategy. Probably one of the best books I've read in a long time, second best to Exit Path. And so, but what I learned from that was just incredible. So thanks for putting out that content. Thanks for sharing that book and your story. Thank you for serving our country. And one day I'll get you on the show, or I'll be on your show. We'll see if we can make that on Valuetainment. Okay. That's it for LinkedIn Moment. That was awesome. Great post. But now the most important time of our show is all about our guest. And here he is, Cameron Gilmore, folks. Cameron Gilmore, he is with the Arch Study of You. He's going to be talking all about what he does, how he does it, how he got started, a little bit about his history. Cameron, man, so glad to have you on the show. And if people don't recognize, I was on his show just a few weeks ago. So this is how we reciprocate the favor, getting each other on podcasts and spreading the word. So, hey, man, thanks again. Thanks so much for being on the show.
Of course, man. Of course. It was fun having you on, and it's fun to be on the other side of this. So I'm excited for it.
Right. Yeah. You taught me how to be a podcaster. So I'm learning from your ways. So but no, it was great. Had a great time and really, again, appreciate all the love that you've been, sending our way. So Cameron, so talk to me. What is the Arch Study of You? Tell me all about it.
Yeah. So the Art Study View was birthed in from just years of business failures. Think about it. My first business sales job was back in 1999. I was selling gateway computers. That was the first time I absolutely sucked at selling computers. I
Oh
sucked at
man, did,
sales.
did you say
Terrible.
Gateway? Did you say
Gateway
Gateway?
computers.
Because
I
I haven't heard that name in
I know.
forever.
I tell people that they're like, wait, well, that was a cow box, right? I'm like, yeah, that was a cow
Yes,
box.
yes, it was. That's
I was
awesome.
horrible, man. I should have left. I should have stopped trying to sell back then. But just for the love of wanting to become better at something, it has grown and grown and grown. And I've tried to over the years try to start businesses, and I've done very well. Failed at all of them. Obviously, it's why I'm still working on building businesses. So in 2020, came up with this phenomenal idea to start a sales company with part-time college kids with little to no sales business knowledge. The investors weren't too happy about that. They wanted me to bring in experienced reps and experienced people, and I didn't want to because experienced people come with experienced drama, and kids who'd have no clue what they were doing were the best. They were the most teachable and coachable, and that's what I wanted. So uh, 2020 to 2022, I built a company in 9 months. We were doing $34 million, 70 employees. I hired the first round of hires were like 20, 25 kids. I only hired outside twice to fill two roles, customer or quality assurance role. And then I built a texting platform from the ground up, and I needed a texting manager. So I brought somebody in to oversee the texting side of it. So in 2021, I was Book Boone reached out, asked if I would write a book. I blew him off because nobody asks a kid that comes from a half Navajo, half Scottish kid from the reservation to write books. And I was like, no, I don't want to do it. Head publisher reached out, said, no, we'd really want you in a book. I said, if I'm going to write it, I would want to write it the way that I would read a book. And so I wrote the book. We went through a couple of iterations. It ended up being an ebook because it's only like 42, 45 pages, but it will take you 2 months to read it because I interview four CEOs, both of them, all four of them are good friends of mine, and to bring in points that I did to build my company. And from that, my wife was like, hey, look, you can't stop there. You have got to continue doing what you're doing. And so that's what I did. So the Arch Study of You stands for the archaeological study of you. It's the uncovering of individuals. Social media is the biggest fraud out there. I'll say it. I'm in marketing. I market people to buy things, but I will tell you social media is the biggest fraud because we only see the 5% of what we want somebody to see. You only see what I want you to see. The other 95% nobody gets to see, but that's what everybody wants to see. Everybody wants to learn, what did you do to get to where you are today? Oprah Winfrey talked about it. E.T. Dr. Eric Thomas, the hip hop preacher, talks about it a lot. You don't want to go through what they went through. You just want the end result. And from that, it birthed the Arch Study of You, and that's what I do. I interview successful individuals that have overcome and a lot throughout their lifetime, whether it's childhood trauma, divorce, whether it's both parents were present but they were gone because they were building other dreams, whether it's they grew up in foster homes, in and out, whatever it may be. We see that they're successful, quote unquote, from a monetary standpoint of what we see. What we don't see is how did they get to that? How did they get and arrive to that process? So that's what the Arch Study of You is all about. It's about bringing in individuals, stripping them down, going through what I like to call the hero's journey, so others globally can be impacted to understand if you went through something similar, then I know that I can do it. And then we give key elements and they give points on what they did to get to where they are today. So that's kind of how I arrived to the art study of you.
So that's crazy. So I want to go back to this a little bit because you talked about building a company fairly quick, right? Like that. I mean, that was that's pretty impressive. And then to have as many employees as you did, what were some of the would you say are the key takeaways from when you started that company? What were some of the biggest, I guess not takeaways, but what were some of the biggest hurdles getting into the business? And then what would you say are some of the greatest victories you had in that business?
Yeah, I mean the biggest hurdle right away was convincing investors that starting a company with people who have no sales business, customer service, none of that. They had no business being in business. We hear that a lot. A lot of gurus always talk about that. That was the biggest push and the biggest sell was why do I want college kids? Why do I want these kids that we should be hiring guys that are doing six figures a year that are sales? And so I broke it down to them and said, listen, you bring in people that are hungry. Literally, college kids go back to when you were in college. You're broke. You're hungry. You've got nothing. And life is so much simpler when you have nothing. So we bring them. I say we bring them in, and they're the most coachable. Why? Because they're already going to school. They're already learning. They already have to. They have to build habits to be able to say, I'm going to do time management. I'm going to study during this time. I'm going to go out and play during this time. I'm going to work during this time. They are the best coachable people in the world. It took some time. So the first, actually, people don't know this, but I started the company with this idea that was going to work. So I was given some money and they said, all right, try it. So I tried it and completely bombed. I mean, it like failed. I fell flat on my face and I was like, no, this is going to work. They're like, it's not going to work. We already tried it. And so it wasn't until I found a company out there that was a texting service. And I literally was sending out quote unquote automated texts, which they weren't. It was a two-part funnel. I put in a text to these leads that were being generated to message out to them. And the simple text just said, hey, Scott. That was it. It was two words. Hey, Scott. And but when you look at your phone and you look at that and it says your name, you're either going to not respond, which is fine, send back an emoji, all types of emojis, or you're going to reply back with, who's this? So then I knew I did that. The next funnel of that would say, oh, hey, this is, Cameron with this company, calling you on the form you filled out. You have a few minutes. And then they would respond back. So because of that company and what it worked, it kind of went through. The second biggest hurdle was I knew that for the first month, 2 months, we were going to be dead red. I knew that we'd be blowing investors' money. I mean, it's basically what it is. I mean, we have these conversations, and it's like, look, I know that we are going to be spending X amount of dollar every single day. That's going to cost me so much money to occupy butts in a seat, and you have to be okay with burning this type of money because the payout is going to be so much bigger. Now, to understand this, I was going into a space that I had years and years, 15 years of telecommunications, 15 years in call centers. So I already knew kind of how to play the game a little bit. But that was the biggest sell. Are you comfortable knowing that for 2 months you are going to be shelling money out and you're not going to see hardly any in return? And that was scary, man. That kept me up at night when you're taking millions of dollars and saying this is what we're going to do. It's super scary. But they bought into it. It failed at first, and then they did some changes, and then we packaged it up and went, and it took off from there. So I only gave the conduit for people to come in, and so the biggest victories is I replaced myself as fast as I could. That was the best thing that I ever did. I created a 5-year business plan. And people always say, well, why not a 3? Well, because the data already says in the first 3 years, 90+% of small businesses will fail because they only have a 3-year mindset. The craziest thing, I said, well, what are we going to do in 5 years? So in 5 years, I said, what is this company going to look like? I don't want to be the CEO of this company in 5 years. I want to find my replacement. So I literally built out a 5-year plan. And I said, what does the CEO currently look like? What is his goals? What is his ambitions? What is his philanthropy? What does he do on the side? What is his mindset? What is his vision, mission, value? So I built out the CEO, then I built out the CMO, then I built out the CFO, then I built out everybody who needed to be on that top level of leadership. I built them all out. So I spent 2.5 weeks building out everybody. I mean, detailed what they were doing, how we were conversating. And then I went out and found my replacements. That's the first thing I needed to do. So I hired a bunch of people. I was blessed to hire an individual who literally just retired from being a medical sales rep. He got married. His wife had a 14-year-old boy who had high functioning autism. He was going back to school to be a teacher. So he would teach
Wow.
when his wife was teaching, and then when it was summer, they would all have breaks. So I brought him in, and I instantly knew that he would be perfect. So he became my sales manager. I'm like, you're gonna. Here's the thing about leadership. I want y'all to listen carefully. Leaders don't tell people, they don't ask them to do a job, they tell them to do a job. And this is what I mean. I built out my sales manager and I said, this is what my sales manager needs to look like. So then I watched this individual, his name was Pete Lewis. And I brought Pete in and I sat him down. I said, Pete, here's the thing. I need a sales manager, and these are the characteristics of a sales manager. You you have 40% of what I want in a sales manager. So here's what we're going to do. This was on a Friday. I said, Saturday, you're going to go home and talk to your wife and say, hey, are you cool if I become a sales manager? The title, you get the title, you don't get the pay. We just weren't in a position, right? We just weren't in a position to pay somebody in a sales manager wage. But I said, here's the responsibility. So go home, tell your wife this is what you're going to do, and come back Monday morning and you're going to be the sales manager. He's like, well, can I think about it? I'm like, there's nothing to think about. I'm putting you in the sales position. I need you to do this. Come Monday, this is what we're going to do. I did it across the board. So leaders put people in leadership positions because I needed to replace who I was. So then the next thing was the trainer. I found somebody that said, hey, here's the correct qualifications for my trainer. You have 40% of them. You're going to take the training. You're going to watch me, and you are going to become our new trainer. And then I just went down the line of putting people in the best position because I knew what they had and what they would become. And once I did that, that's what exploded. I mean, that's really what took off the business. And we were dead red for 2 months, about 2.5 months. We finally broke even, and it really, really propelled. So those are the two biggest things. I mean, just getting the believability and buy-in. And then when I saw the individuals that were going to replace me, I just put them in the position. I just told them that's what they were doing. I didn't ask them. I just said, this is what you're going to do. And it worked out.
So this is kind of interesting. So you mentioned a couple of times about first you mentioned about your wife, and then you mentioned about having this gentleman go home and talk to his wife. Can you tell me a little bit about your view on your partnership with your spouse and how that plays a role in business for owning and how you're hiring? What kind of role does that play?
Yeah, great question. I'm blessed and fortunate. My those who follow me on social media, that I always refer to as the hot wife, because she is the hottest wife in the world. Um, she is
Some
an
will
entrepreneur.
disagree with that.
Yeah.
My
um,
wife's listening.
there you go. She has an entrepreneur spirit. I mean, she loves business. I was blessed. She Now just, I've been married for 8 years. I was married for 12 years before, went through a nasty divorce, and then we've been married now for 8 years. So together we have 10 kids, right? We have six, she has 6 white kids. I have 4 brown kids, and together that's what you get. I know that's probably not politically correct, but grow up people, that's just how I talk. So,
Hey, it-
um,
we're not here to be politically correct.
that's
So
right. If you follow both of us, you know that very well. The relationship between, the spouse, whether, however you want to look at it, is your biggest cheerleader is the person that you go home and lay with at night, and you can have conversations with, and you're doing something right.
hmm.
Also, if that same person questions what you are doing, you also know you have somebody who's perfect for you, because you don't want a yes person. You don't want someone to say, well, I guess, or you don't want someone to not push back, right? Because pushback is what you need, right? You need that pushback. You need that. It's quote unquote adversity. And we can talk all about adversity, how it has a double meaning. But my wife, she has been through me. This was the fourth business adventure that I had started since in our 8 years of marriage. I mean, think about it. Every 2 years, I'm like, hey, I got this great idea. We'd run through it. We'd go down, and she's like, oh, can you just find a normal job, please? That would be super great. And I'm like, yeah. But because I knew the relationship that we had, very communicative, and I've worked on my communication with her for years and years and years, it would put me in a place to build. So that if you have good communication, which is the biggest thing, sometimes you need to over communicate. My wife, when she listens to this, I know she's going to punch me right in the rib because she's like, I have told you this for years. And I'm like, you're right. Communication is the biggest thing. Also, helping them understand, like if I was going into a completely new field that I had no business, like let's take real estate. I've never done real estate before in my life. I'm like, hey, I'm going to go into real estate. She's like, no, you're not, because you don't know any first thing about real estate. Right. Don't do it. Right. People, a lot of contention happens if you go into a space you're not. So understand this, occupy the space that you know is going to be the best for you. And that's what I did. I went to a space that I had already known for 15 years.
Right.
So that was, that was a communication. When I brought in the salespeople and I brought them into leadership, it was go tell your wife that your boss believes in you enough that he's going to put you in this leadership position, and watch what she says.
Wow. So, my wife and I are, it's interesting when we started Magazine Jukebox, some of the investors, they were, they're pretty adamant about it not being a 50-50 partnership, that it needed to be 100% owned by one, whether it be Lauren or myself. And the reason for that is because how shares get divided up. And also, unfortunately, as you talked about a divorce, when that happens, they want to know who they're in business with. So that's pretty important. Hopefully it doesn't happen, but it does happen from time to time. So the idea here is that they gave a lot of pushback. And what's funny now is, like, now as the company's growing and thriving, then it's all of a sudden it's like, oh wow, you guys make such a great team. And I've always said, like, I've always found it interesting that we can't be viewed as a team until you're successful, and then you are a team. And then it's beneficial to be a team. So
Yeah.
it's a, slippery slope, I guess, but you just got to play the game, especially when you're raising capital as a startup. So all right, so Cameron, let me piggyback a little bit. First of all, where are you located at? Are you out of you're in the Midwest, I believe?
Utah.
Utah. Okay.
Yep.
So being in Utah, like, Utah is really blowing up in the tech space. I mean, they
Mm-hmm.
really are. And I heard this really fun story years ago. Like, all all of your alarm companies like ADT or whatever it used to be, and all them, they're all based out of Utah. And the reason for that, and this is nothing against it, like, my family, half of my family is Mormon, but the reason for that is because they recruit Mormons after they come on off of mission, and they're used to door knocking, so it's
Mm-hmm.
easy for them to go door knocking and make a living doing it. So I thought that was pretty interesting. But as they're blowing up, how does your company now, or what you're building, how does that fit into that ecosystem there in Utah? And then what do you feel like Utah is doing to help get and spread your company out, across the world? Because we know that your podcast that you're on reached across the world quite successfully. So talk
Mm-hmm.
on that too, if you can.
Yeah, I mean, Utah is, they call it, there's just 30 minutes from a house, a place called Lehigh. It's called the Silicon Slope, right? That's the new catchphrase, and it is absolutely exploded. Um, Utah is a great place for individuals who love to be, one, outdoors, and two, love to connect and rub shoulders with everybody. You're right. I mean, going back to your statement, I mean, you get a lot of recruiters for pest control. Anybody who does door-to-door sales, I mean, they go right into, they go to Brigham Young University, University of Utah, UVU. A lot of these return missionaries come, and it's like, hey, you guys were knocking door, spreading the word of God. Now knock door and get paid. And they're like, what do you mean? And so it's just this easy transition for them. You get a lot of these kids that have built, they were able to build, because they served missions for 2 years, or the women for 18 months, and they had to build habits, right? They had to build these habits every single day. They had to map out their day, they had to plan their day, and then they had to go execute their day. So while they were young, right out of high school, a lot of them 18, 19-year olds, so for 2 years, that's all they did was learn how to build effective habits. And that is the biggest thing. I mean, high performing habits. I mean, if you've never read that book, you should probably go read that book, because that's a phenomenal build. I taught this principle a lot. You build a habit, you build your future. But if you build successful habits, you build a lifestyle. And these kids have learned how to just build habits. And so they kind of have a leg up in the world because they just know how to build and build habits. A lot of them are when you look at Utah and what it's doing, it's a really just this big tech base, and technology is what's going to change everything. My neighbor owns a data center, this massive data center down in Utah, and I talk to him all the time. He's like, you know, data is the king of everything. So when you look at what you want to transition into is the king of data, right? So how for me in podcasting and also writing a book, I'm getting ready to write some more books. It's all about how can I distribute to the masses the quickest, right? What can I do to get the data out there the fastest, and how can I get people to buy into what I'm doing and take their information, right, and then link up with other companies that would be a good fit for them. Now, I don't bring on a lot of partnerships. I don't. I have one partner. I have one that a partnership, and then I have a second one that I actually promote his stuff because I absolutely love his journal. My family uses it all the time, and so it's about aligning yourself with that next phase in life, right? Chat GTP, everybody knows about it. If you're not using it, you're crazy. A lot of things that I have up in my brain, I'll type in a chat GTP. It gives me 85% of what I'm already thinking. Then I just go and clean it up. And I'm like, oh, that's exactly what I'm looking for. So the connection, the rubbing shoulders, a lot of people come in. Park City is a big place, big ski resort. People love to go, but it holds film festivals. So it's about connecting with individuals, their parents. It's crazy how I just see this connection through parents. And a lot of people come into Utah to promote and to do workshops, and they do classes. And so when I interview a lot of these people, they're like, hey, let's link up in Utah. Like, oh, we'll be there, on our tour. So it's been fun. It's been good to see the industry grow, but also technology, how it's taking off. And these kids are just super smart that they latch on to, you hear that these new kids coming up, they're lazy. They're not. They found the shortest point, the shortest distance between 2 points. It's not a straight line. It's the bending of that point, and that's what they're doing. So it's been cool. It's been a lot of fun.
Well, wasn't it like Bill Gates who said, "I love lazy people because they find the quickest and easiest way to a result."
Hmm.
It's like, so I if you're calling them lazy, then maybe that's what you want to hire. So
Yeah.
who knows? So what's next for you? What's on the horizon?
Well, yeah. I've got a couple of things in the works. Writing a book. I've been asked to write a few more books. One of a trilogy book, from divorced dad, single dad to bonus dad. People are always interested in those types of books. People want me to do more mentorship, so they want to write some learning and how tos on how to build and how to grow. The biggest one thing you get asked a lot is about how did it help teach kids, because they really are. I mean, most is 80%, 85% of the employees I had, I could have been their dad. That was the age discrepancy. And so it's how do you educate and teach these kids how to become better professionals and how to be good in the business world. And so that's the next step, is just trying to take the knowledge that I have of over the 20 years I've been in the business space, condense it down and give it to kids that can just pass on that next generation. So leaving a legacy is the next biggest thing. That's why I do a podcast, and why I interview so many successful people. It's not for me. It's not for my children. It's for my grandchildren's my grandchildren's great grandchildren. It's for them. So when they want to know what their grandfather was like in Navajo, it's Che. I'm their Che. They want to know what I was like. They can go, well, here, he did this whole digital library for you. Go listen to what he was like. So that's the real big reasons why I do the podcast.
That's pretty awesome, and I know that I don't know why I'm talking so much about the Mormon belief, but they own the Mormon Foundation owns Ancestry.com. I don't know if you know that.
Mm-hmm.
And so they actually have some of the largest database of being able to track back family and stuff like that. It's really neat. But man, look, this is all super fascinating. But I want my listeners and viewers to zone in for a second, because when Cameron and I were talking, I know that all this great stuff he's offering, but he wants to offer you guys something else, and he wants to give you guys something special. So, Cameron, why don't you tell him what that is?
Yeah. So I've created two. So you can reach out to either Scott or myself if you like this podcast. You write a review. So two things. One, I have a framework. It's called From Zero to 34 Million. It's the 10 steps that I take. I go ahead and list it all out for you guys. You guys can have it. It's a free gift, 100%. Just take it and run with it. The next thing that the next gift that I'm going to give you is what's called to set up the 90-minute block. And I'm going to talk just real brief about this because you have to understand how to really have what I call the 90-minute focus. So when these kids were on the phone, we turned off all distractions and we had them focus for 90 minutes. So Ed Milet talks about creating 3 business days within one workday, right? Most people aren't at that level. Definitely not me. I'm definitely not at the create 3 work days. So how do you create 2 work days in one day? So what you do is you separate it out. Take your day. Whenever you start work and you say, all right, from here to here, 4 hours, that's my first work day, then have my lunch. So that is the work day number 1. So in that time frame, in the 4-hour time frame, you are going to set aside 90-minute run. You call it your 90-minute run. And in that 90-minute run, you are going to lay out exactly what it is you are going to accomplish. Here's the thing, though. It cannot be, I'm going to go and sell, I'm going to pitch, I'm going to close. That's not what the 90-minute run is for. That's what meetings are for. That's what you plan your day around, all that other stuff. The 90-minute run is to focus, intense focus. There's a word for it. It's called oligodendrocytes, is this word that nobody ever knows about. Everybody knows about dopamine. Everybody loves dopamine. Dopamine is the feel-good drug. It's what we go after, right? Scientifically speaking, the brain can only focus or be in this dopaminic state for about 90 minutes. But once you get used to it, it kind of cuts back to 60. So just like anything you've ever done that you've never done before, you have to build up a tolerance for it. And that's where the oligodendrocyte comes in. This is the coating. It's a myelin coating over this firing of neurons in your brain being so focused that it can withstand it. So what you do is you have to start your day before you start your day. So first thing you do is you get up before everybody else gets up. Look, if you're an entrepreneur, if you're a business owner, if you're a CEO, if you're in leadership, I don't care, whatever it is, if you want to be better than the average person, you've got to get up before the average person. And whenever that is, right? I up 4:30 in the morning. It's when I get up and I'm out to the gym, come back, I do my breathing, I do my reading, my scriptural reading, I do my prayer, and then I sit down and go, today is the day I'm going to focus. 90-minute run, here's what I'm doing. I'm going to become a student of the game. If you are a student of the game that you're in, you're not playing the game, you're an employee. Good job. But if you want to be a student, a professional understands and studies their craft. So whatever that is, you have to study the craft. So in that 90-minute block, you're going to take the first 40 minutes and you're going to study, you're going to learn, you're going to research, not only now, but what's trending, and go back 40 years. Why do you think Warren Buffett, why do you think he reads Wall Street journals that are in the 1960s? He watches trends. So become a student of the game, become the study your craft. Then the next 45 minutes, you're going to outreach, you're going to connect with people, you're going to engage with people, non-sales activities. Just connect with them, understand them, get to know them, get to know their brain, their mindset. So connect with people, find 10 people, say, I want to connect with these 10 people. I've used the same opening in LinkedIn for the last, 4 years. It says, hey, Scott, I see we're connected with, and I'll reference somebody's name. I would love to connect. And guess what? Everybody connects with me because it's not intrusive. But then you go on and just connect with posts. So the 90-minute block, what it is help you understand how to become most effective in 90-minute runs for twice a day. And you will accomplish more in those 90-minute runs than you will the entire workday. So that's the other gift.
I'll tell you that, first of all, thank you for that. And we will make sure we post that and get that out because people need to take advantage of that. Startups, founders, those thinking about opening up their own company, whatever stage you're in, this can help you, and this can help you be very, very successful. So make sure you tap into that free gift. The second thing that I got to say is I am so sick and tired of hearing people tell me that I got to get up earlier. Gosh, man, every podcast I'm in, they're like, oh, you got to get up before everybody else. I mean, like I get up at 5:30 and I feel like I'm behind the curve and I'm like, what the heck, So, so thanks for that reiteration. Everybody's telling me to do that.
Well, think about this. Think
it's
about this.
right. No, I get it.
No,
It's right.
here's the thing, though. Gary Vee will tell you. Gary Vee does most of his work at 1, 2, 3 o'clock in the morning. That's when he does. So it's whenever you do the most effective work. Keep that work. Some people are night owls. I hate the morning. I don't get up at 4:30 because I want to. I get up at 4:30 because I have to get to the gym because I can't go through the regular day. And by the time work is done, I've got 10 freaking kids. I got 4 grandkids. My life, the season of my life is I want to spend more time with my grandkids and my kids than I do want to do at work. So how do I do that? That's how I accomplish it. So Scott, you keep getting up at 5. That's great because I guarantee you getting up at 5 because you choose to get up at 5, not because you got to get up at 5, jump in the shower and be out the door by 6 to be at your job by 6:30 or 7. You get up at 5 is your choice of saying, I'm going to be better than the 97% of the people in this world that just get up, get out of bed, run to work, log in, and then spend 15 minutes walking around doing nothing. So in a sense, you are right. But in the other sense, it's like, dude, you are doing it. The proof's in the pudding. I've watched you from when we connect, like a year ago, 2 years ago, something like that. I've watched you build this company to where it is today. It's because you do the things that nobody wants to do to have the things that everybody wants to have.
Yeah, I like that saying of be the 1% the 99% are not willing to be. So
Mm-hmm.
they it's funny. I wake up early. I don't like to sleep a lot, my but now I'm in like competition with my 7-year-old because he doesn't sleep and he's like, all right, good night, daddy. He goes, I'll see you in the morning. I'll say, no, I'll see you. And he goes, no, I'll see you. And I'm like, that's a little creepy, but all right. And so he tries to wake up and get to my bed, before I wake up. And he always he'll tap me on the shoulder. He'll be like, dad, wake up. You need to be up, but it doesn't matter whether he goes to bed at 10 o'clock at night, which rarely happens. Every now and then we let him stay up late. But normally he goes to bed about 8:30. And, but it doesn't matter whether it's 8 or 10 o'clock, he's getting up at like no later than 6 a.m. Doesn't really matter. And so he's always putting me in my place. But look, Cameron, man, this has been a great show. Our podcasts don't last nearly as long as yours do. But that's because you unravel so many parts of a onion on your podcast while we're just a little bit more free flowing. So thank you so much, man, for being on the show. This has been great. We're going to make sure we get all your social channels put out there. But before we wrap this up, I already warned you, we got Pick Your Poison coming up. So let's cue up the music and then we can get that rolling here.
Let's do it.
You ready?
Yep.
All right. Now remember, you can only pick one.
Okay.
You got to sing the national anthem at the Super Bowl without practicing beforehand. It's brutal. Steal food off of a stranger's plate every time you go out to eat. Man, both of those are tough.
Wow, those are tough, man. Dang it. Let's do this. Let's do the sing. Let's sing the national anthem.
National anthem. All right, go for it. I'm just kidding. All right, so yeah,
I was already getting ready to start singing.
I think I would do. I think I'd rather take embarrassment than ever hurt someone. So I think that's how I'd view that. Okay, next one, last one. Here we go. Never trim your fingernails again, or have your high school yearbook photo become your meme.
High school yearbook, 100%. I actually just got done cutting my nails. They once they hit a certain length and I can feel them, man, I will cut them, I will file them, and I will buff them out.
So you're saying a Manny over, or no, Manny's more important than what your meme could be.
Yeah, 100%. Because I know my high school picture. It's already brutal. So
there's only two high school pictures of me out there because I dropped out. Okay, so. Anyways, look, Cameron, man, you've been a great guest. This has been awesome. We're going to cue up our final goodbye music, and we are going to start saying our goodbyes. But I want to thank Magazine Jukebox for, again, sponsoring this. You guys are super awesome, and everything that our company is growing, and it's just fun to watch. But then also, I want to thank you, Cameron, for taking time out of your day to be with us. The Arch Study of You is incredible, and I wish you much success. And I look forward to seeing all your success. I'll end it with this with you. It will not surprise me for you to succeed. It will surprise me if you fail. That's how much I believe in you. All right. Thanks, Cameron. Appreciate it, man. All right, everybody. Till next time.